It's that time again. The annual conference of the American Society of Ag Consultants, otherwise known as ASAC, is going to be held in Fort Myers, Florida, this November 4th and 5th. Kurt Covington is one of 9 professionals who will address the conference. The other speakers who will cover a wide range of topics represent Florida Farm Bureau, Florida Citrus Commission, University of Tennessee Institute of Agriculture, National Ag Law Center, Risk Mitigators and Advisors, Tyler Associates, as well as the lead economist for dairy at CoBank, and myself, Chrissy Wozniak from North American Ag. The day and a half of presentations will be followed by ag tours on Tuesday afternoon at Echo Farms, one of my favorite places here in Fort Myers. Attendees will experience farming at its most creative, with unique demonstrations, plants, and techniques being used to help farmers and urban gardeners in developing countries. A second tour at Echo will showcase simple technologies that can improve food, water, and shelter for millions of people. A third tour of a hydroponic grower is also being planned. For more information and to register, visit www.agconsultants.org. That's www.agconsultants.org. See you there. Today's Ag Spotlight episode is sponsored by Energrow. Energrow's oilseed pressing system helps farmers crush their feed costs. The easy way to make fresh, homegrown, high-quality meal plus expeller pressed oil right on the farm. The fully automated Turnkey Crush Pro is easy to set up and run 24/7. To learn more, go to energrow.ca. Hi, and welcome to North American Ag Spotlight. I'm Chrissy Wozniak. Today, I'm speaking with Larry Maguire. He's Member of Parliament for the federal riding of Brandon-Souris since 2013. And he also grew up on a farm in Souris, Manitoba, and has a strong record of standing up for Canadian farmers. Welcome, Larry, and thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure to be here with you today, Chrissy. Yeah, wonderful.
So I heard you got some great news yesterday about the bill C-208. But before we dive into that, can you give us a little bit of background about yourself and what brought you into public service?
I grew up in a small town just south of Souris at Elgin, Manitoba, 35 miles off the American border, with all of my colleagues and neighbors down there that we've made friends with over the years. I farmed there all of my life, got into farm leadership roles, I guess. Was in Kansas in '86 when the U.S. brought in their first farm bill as a farm leader in the prairies way back then. Much younger in those days, but anyway, I guess that's what gave me the experience to get involved in Canadian farm organizations. You know, your community grows up. You mentioned that I grew up in Souris or Elgin in that area. Then your community expands to the area around that. Then it became Manitoba when I was farm business president in Manitoba. Helped found the Keystone Agriculture Producers, a general farm organization in that area. Became president of the Western Canadian Wheat Growers Association. That got me speaking to our American neighbors on a regular basis with their National Association of Wheat Growers. Groups down there. Used to go to the NOG conventions in warmer places in January than Regina and Winnipeg, but just getting involved in community. The community just kept expanding, and I was a provincial MLA for 14 years in Manitoba, member of the Legislative Assembly provincially, similar to the states, what they have in the U.S. And then, of course, our member stepped down in the midterm in 2013, and I ran for that successful election and back in 2013, and have been a federal member of Parliament now for the last 8 years. So with a farm background and a rural background, I'm very interested in all of the things that keep agriculture going. I just got off a Zoom call with the Egg Producers of Canada, and those things continue to work. Presently, I've been on the Ag Committee as an opposition member in Canada, but presently I'm on the Health Committee of Canada as well. But you'll never take the interest of agriculture away from a farm boy. So I guess it's a pleasure to be able to speak to you today about this bill C-208, as you said, and I think to answer your question, just got involved. I always laugh and say that I was the only one in a little town of Elgin. It was only about 400 people when I grew up. Now it's only about 50.
Oh, wow.
But I was the only one that grew up in that. Well, I wasn't the only one. There was lots of volunteers, but how did I get into politics? I probably grew up and I was the only one that never said no. So,
right.
You get yourself involved, and if you like people, then you probably are destined to be in volunteer or politics someplace. And that's how I got into all this.
Right. Wow, that's really great. So farm families are at a huge disadvantage with our current tax laws. So can you tell me the importance of your bill, C-208?
Well, this is a very interesting situation. I've picked up a bill that the interim leader of the NDP had word for word. Guy Caron brought this forward. The first iteration was actually from a Liberal, Mr. Debrew, who was Emmanuel Debrew, who brought this forward when I was in government. He was an opposition member back in Mr. Prime Minister Harper's days, from 13 to the 15 election, and and it didn't go anywhere because of the election being called. And Mr. Caron brought it forward as well, and it was defeated by the Liberals at that time. And so I have brought that forward. What the bill does is it levels the playing fields for farm transfers, for family farm transfers. When parents decide to sell to their own son, daughter, or grandchild, grandson, or granddaughter, there's a different tax law if you sell to your own family than a complete stranger. Somebody from the other side of the planet, basically, could be. And so this I felt, and so did all of the opposition members feel, and actually having gotten it through the vote yesterday in Parliament and now off to the Senate to be worked there before it becomes law. We had, I think it was 19 Liberal members that actually voted for it as well, and so it's a big change for people, and I can get into the details of that, but of the bill and how that works for you. But the bottom line on this bill is it levels the playing field for people wanting to sell to their own family, because there's a huge tax detriment to do that today.
Right. And so can you give us an example of the way the family land transfer happens right now, and then what Bill C-208 does?
Well, anybody can sell to their family. There's no doubt about that. The problem is when you sell to this is for qualifying farms, and it's not just farms. This bill affects every small business in Canada. You could have a bakery, an insurance broker, office. If you want your family to take over that business, and it's defined as a small business because there's a definition of that in Canadian law. So it's not everybody that can take the benefit of this, or would I'm hesitant to say a benefit, because all this really does is level the playing field to selling to a stranger. So there's nothing prohibiting you from doing it today, except that it's going to cost you a lot of money. If you're a qualifying small business or fishery or a farming operation in Canada, and you're incorporated and you have share values, which many are set up today because of tax laws. It's just a benefit to be incorporated as a small business, whether you're a farm or not. And if you sell your business today, the difference between the original purchase price and the sale price is taxed differently. So if you sell to a complete stranger, you get to use what we have here in Canada as a capital gains exemption. So your tax rate comes down to around 13 or 14%. If you sell to your son or daughter or grandchild, then you are taxed, then the profits of that sale become taxed as a dividend and you're not eligible for the capital gains exemption. So therefore you can pay as high as 44% tax.
Wow.
So that's a difference of, in many cases, on $1 million operation, of about $400,000. And, we've built in check marks in this as well to make sure that there aren't, that everything stays above the law. And I can get into that later as well. But that's the bottom line. It's the difference between being able to use your capital gains exemption, and for the parents who have basically, probably in most small business that I know and farms, have put their heart and soul and all of their profits back into the business through their lifetime. And when they want it to carry on into the next generation, when the next generation purchases it and pays them for it, that payment that they get is their retirement fund in most cases. And I think what the federal government, the Liberals have not supported this, but as I said, 19 did vote for it yesterday, so it'll go off to the Senate. And I think with some time there, we're hoping that it will pass the Senate as well and become law. But there is a situation where we want to be able to just have that money stay in the community, and it'll do that better by staying in the hands of the parents, because they're not going to move away a whole long ways away if they have a family involved in a business that they've built themselves.
Right. Yeah. So when exactly did the existing law come to be? How long ago was that?
Well, these tax laws and corporation and that sort of thing came in the 70s, I believe. Close to 50 years ago, I guess, some of them. I don't know when this exact law came into being, but it has been there for decades, and it's been a big cost. The government at one point indicated that it was going to be something like $2 billion a year. Well, even the parliamentary budget officer and the Library of Parliament, who I went to before we brought this bill back in word for word, indicated that it's nowhere near that. It might be in the neighborhood of 170 to 300 million a year. But it's not every business that will sell to their family. Families change, and the younger generation, in many cases, goes to university, takes a different path than farming or fishing or whether it's a bakery or life underwriter. We've had a lot of support from the Canadian Life Underwriters Association, the Insurance Brokers Association of Canada, all the provincial farm organizations, the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, the Taxpayers Federation of Canada, the Montreal Board of Trade. I mean, it goes on and on and on, the list of people that are supportive of this move. So it levels the playing field. That's what it does.
That is excellent. I saw that the Prime Minister did vote against the bill yesterday. So what do you think the reasoning is behind it? It seems obvious to us, that this is a good path, but what do you think that reasoning is?
Well, I mentioned that there were safeguards built into this. They're worried about the fact that there may be some kind of illegal transaction take place in this effort. Okay. Now, this bill does not stop Canada Revenue Agency or the taxation people in Canada, Department of Revenue, from auditing anybody at any time like they would normally.
Right.
So the safeguard that Mr. Caron built into this bill is that if the transaction were to take place and no money was to change hands, but the parents would get the benefit of the capital gains exemption, that he built it in there that if that hasn't happened within 5 years, then the parents have to go back and pay the taxes as if it was deemed to be a dividend sale anyway.
I see. Right.
So nobody's going to, for the kind of money involved in any small business that I've ever spoken to or been involved in myself, because I was, and I'm one of the ones that was able to take, advantage of that capital gains exemption, because my children were both in other industries, and my son and daughter were both in other industries, and so we did not sell it to directly transfer to a family member. But for those who have, they should have that opportunity, and so this safeguard built into it of having to go back and pay it as if the taxes as if it was a dividend is a very big detriment to any kind of misuse of the situation.
For sure. Yeah. And Canada's existing tax law, it's similar to the one put forward by the Biden administration recently. So do you have any advice for our U.S. audience when it comes to fighting things like this? Because you are fighting this. So what advice do you have?
Get it passed as quick as you can.
Right.
No, I'm seriously. This is just, I've got, as I say, I was in the U.S. and the farm bills came in the 80s. And there's been different advantages that we've talked about on different sides of the border in our agriculture industries and small businesses throughout everybody's lifetime. Different governments will come in and change those situations or try to improve it for people. Anything we can do to keep these small businesses in their local area, to continue to employ the people that they do, to continue to give families an ongoing revenue source so that they can make their living doing these things, helps build small communities. It helps build cities. It helps everybody. And government are always looking for ways to help people, as we say in government. This is one of the best ways. Leave the money in their pockets. Don't take it out of there in the first place. And by doing that, those dollars are going to stay in those communities. They're going to develop those communities, and there's less need for government to get involved in those areas. And not to deny the fact that these people, if they live there, they're volunteers, and it's the same in the U.S. as it is here in Canada. A lot of our communities exist because people are very much involved in their community as volunteers, and that's what helps make them tick, and if they can stay in those communities with the funds that I've talked about, without being a burden on the next generation, then that's a big gain for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
And so the bill is now headed to Senate. So what's the kind of the timeline there?
Well, we just got it through the House of Commons in Canada here yesterday afternoon, and it will go to the Senate, which we have a constituency week next week, so it'll probably come back in after the long weekend, the May long weekend here on the 25th of May, and it will start its way through the Senate at that time. And so it and other bills. And so we rise for the summer on June the 23rd, if there's no interruption from the minority government in an election in Canada. And with COVID being what it is, there's some, I think there's, you can never say never, but I would say that it's there's less risk than there was maybe a month ago, unfortunately, because I mean, nobody wants to have an election in the middle of a pandemic. Yeah. So if we can spend a bit of time with the Senate and moving these bills, there's mine and others. There's a few other ones that have passed yesterday in the House as well, and a couple before that, to be dealt with as private members' bills in the Senate. It'll be picked up there and moved forward, and hopefully some of these will go either, pass before the end of June when we rise, or early in the fall if there's still no election then.
Great. Yeah. And is there anything we can do to help this cause at this point?
Absolutely. I think that there's, for anybody out there who's interested in this, let your senators know now. Still, though, let your members of parliament know, because they need to know that there is support for this. And as I said, there is not one constituency of the 338 that we have in Canada that this doesn't involve. Everybody has small businesses of one way, shape, or form in their ridings. It's not just farming or fishing. It could be a bake shop, a dress shop, a corner store, any of these. Insurance organizations as well, anybody with a small business. And we've had, as I say, big support from all over Canada on this. And I think it's just a situation whose time has come, and hopefully we can level the playing field. So let your senators know as well, because that's where it'll be dealt with next.
Great. Yeah. And you're also opposed to Bill C-10. Can you tell us a little bit about your position on that controversial bill?
Well, our Conservative Party is against that as it's presently put forward. There's amendments that may come to it, but one that they took out was to make sure that individuals could still post what they want on social media. They've taken that, or they had taken that amendment out of the bill, and yet they're still trying to say, oh, no, this is no infringement on anybody's rights to free speech or free expression. But it clearly is, because they've taken that part of it for individual rights out of the bill. And so we're trying to at least have that put back in, but we're very concerned about the activity of the government in regards to limiting the use of social media in Canada by Canadians under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So thank you for opposing that one as well, on behalf of most of us, I would say. So I have one last question for you. On the show, I usually ask my guests what they want their legacy to be. So what is that for you? What did God put you on this earth to accomplish?
Well, probably to be a good farmer. And, we all have our families and that sort of thing that we want to make sure that we can take care of as well as we possibly can. But I think the big thing here for me, as I mentioned earlier, is just, my dad had a saying, chance to meet a stranger is an opportunity to make another friend. And I've tried to live by that all my life, because helping others is, I did not start out to be doing this when I started farming, almost 50 years ago. But, it's just, it's not a calling. It's just something that I have come into. And as I said, my community kept expanding. And I just want the legacy to know that, to read somewhere along the line that I was able to help people. And that's why you bring things like this Bill C-208 together. It's just to make life a little more simple for everybody. And you can do that if you're in a position of town councils, municipal councils. You don't have to be a member of parliament to do it. We can, all of our volunteer organizations, we've got many charitable organizations in Canada to be involved in and around the world as well. So, that's why there's so many similarities between Canada and the United States. in regards to this type of lifestyles. I was involved as a member of the Manitoba legislature with people from Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota,
Wow.
and Manitoba got together years ago, and we were dealing with issues following the 1997 flood of the Red River, on issues of common concern to us. There's lots of differences, but it was a big learning experience to find out that, people on the ground in North Dakota that are farming have the same situations as we do in southern Manitoba or Ontario. And it's once you break things down and get to speak to each other on a daily basis, practically, you can find out that there's a lot of similarities. And I try to use my skills in that, if I can say that there are any, to be able to, take out some of the differences that exist, I guess. And it doesn't have to be between nations. It can be between provinces or neighboring towns. And I think that's a big issue for people to be able to take into consideration as they go through life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for joining me today. There's so many big issues right now, and I really appreciate your analysis. And again, thank you so much for fighting for Canadian farmers. That's wonderful to have people out there actually fighting.
Well, the other one is on. I got to know a lot of people in Southern Ontario when I was on the Canada Grains Council as well. I spent a lot of time on some of the Southern Ontario farms, and I was on the immigration committee, as I said just a while ago, and spent a lot of time in the greenhouse industry dealing with the temporary foreign workers and the seasonal ag workers that we have in Canada and as well. And I want to commend all of the farms out there today for the great work that they're doing in keeping everybody safe, and for the produce. I'll be very unabashed about this. We provide the best food in the world, the best quality food in the world to our consumers in Canada, and we should be very proud of that. And consumers should be aware of that as well, because it doesn't happen everywhere in the world like this.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Definitely. Yes, thank you, and thanks to all of our listeners and our audience. If you want more information, all the links will be provided in the show notes. So have a great day.
Great, thank you.
The way we conduct business in agriculture has endured a drastic change. Our handshake industry has traditionally been face-to-face, but with the cancellation of in-person events and farm shows, everyone has had to adapt, from farms to manufacturers to service providers. With a dizzying array of marketing and digital business choices, you need to make the right decisions or risk not being seen at all. If you need advice or a customized plan for your business, don't hesitate to reach out to me at chrissywozniak.com or chrissy.info, because that's easier to spell. Don't risk not pivoting your business. Find a path that will take you into the digital space and be seen by our industry.